Hey, how's it going, everyone? Seth here from Glowe, and I've been doing a lot of 3D printing lately, and there's some things that make it tricky for the general car audio or automotive application in general. The biggest one being the temperatures that they'll expose to. Eliminates immediately the most popular types of filament that you can use to actually make your items. Well, I saw something new from Polymaker. And this has only been out, I had to wait about 2 weeks for this, and it just showed up today, and it's not even my full order, but I was excited to get my hands on it. It is PLA filament that claims to be able to withstand much higher temperatures, and it should work at least in the cabin of the car. So the biggest thing about this is you'll no longer need really any kind of advanced 3D printer to use something makeable for your car. Like if you want to design something, if you're designing like an amp rack, anything like that, it'll make it very easy to do with even entry-level printers. Right now I have a K2 Max, and that has a full enclosure for engineering filaments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this new filament, I'm going to try it out, I just got it today, and I'm going to print some test structures, and I'm going to test it against ABS, which is a very common thing. I'm going to test it against polycarbonate, which is currently my favorite. So we're going to be testing these things, see how they work out. And like I said, this is Polymaker Black HT-PLA. They also have a glass or a fiberglass infused version, I believe. I do not have any of that yet, but I do have the HT-PLA. So we'll get this printing. And just to show you what we're working with, I do already have the polycarbonate test piece printed out. That is right here. So filament dryers though. But this is the polycarbonate piece that we're going to test. So again, it's just like this. It is, I have dimensions measured in, written down here, so we're actually going to be measuring for dimensional accuracy. We are going to be measuring before and after annealing. I'm going to use something low cost in order to anneal the PLA. That's take annealing, so we'll test that as well. And we will get everything started now. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, we will be doing today's test on a Creality K2 Plus, and I do have the filament here. I'm just getting it loaded into the CFS unit. You can see over here was the polycarbonate that I used to do the first test print. Once that gets spooled up, we will go slice it and get the print started. If you're interested in the print settings, I'll have those later in the video just to compare. We're going to keep all the amount of walls the same, the amount of infill percentage the same, but of course it will take different print settings, and this one should be much easier. So we're going to get started. So here's what it looks like when I get it sliced with the default PLA settings. It looks like our test piece will take 40 minutes and 33 seconds to print with an estimated filament cost of 91 cents. Now this is significant if we're going to compare it to the other engineering type filaments, because like carbon fiber nylon is quite a bit more expensive. It would cost $1.56, so over 1.5 times the cost, as well as the printing time is 1 hour and 29 minutes, which is over twice as long to print right from the get-go. So a couple advantages definitely in the HT-PLA's corner if it does manage to, perform like it says it does. Speaking of, what exactly does it say it can do? Well, if we go to Polymaker's webpage, right offhand, they're saying that it can withstand temperatures of up to 150 degrees Celsius, which is substantial. Then we have a couple of softening and deflection temperatures here. And what the difference is between these things is, like, a softening temperature is how much heat it can withstand before it begins to deform under its own weight, whereas the heat deflection temperature is a measure of at what temperature under a specific amount of stress or load the item can handle. So today we're just going to be testing the actual softening temperature, seeing
how hot it can get while maintaining its shape. Also, if we look, it does recommend annealing for 30 minutes at 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. We are going to do that with one of our test pieces. That'll be pretty easy, and we will get them both tested.
All right, so I do have both of the high temp ones printed. Initial impressions is it printed buttery smooth. I just used the default PLA settings like it said. And on this one, I actually cranked the speed up a bit. Printed much faster, and this will print very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and begin the annealing process, which it says to anneal will take 80 to 90 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. So we're gonna go ahead and try that and see how it does. So almost forgot, I do want to get some measurements just to make sure, before and after we anneal the properties. So I have my test piece right here. The legs we know are 30 millimeters. Well, they should be. So we're going to go ahead and pre-annealing. We have 29.9, so pretty close. And then we know that the bridge should be 10 millimeters, just to check that because it's a thinner piece. Okay, 10 exactly, so extremely good dimensional accuracy on that piece. So we have 30 millimeters and we have the 10 millimeters. Let's go ahead and do the other axis just to make sure. This should be 20 millimeters wide and we have 19.9 millimeters. So let's go ahead and get this annealed and then we will measure it afterwards. Okay, so to do the annealing, I'm actually going to use this, and I'm going to let it preheat to 190 F, which is between the 80 and 90 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to let this heat up, and then I will set it for a 30-minute timer. I'm going to give it about 20 minutes to heat, and then, so I'll set a 30-minute timer, and we will measure it after. Guys, the timer just went off. Looking at the print, it doesn't look like it destroyed it, so that's a good first start. We'll let this cool off and then we will look at the measurements.
Okay, so checking out the measurements, looks like the 10.0 measurement stayed exactly the same. The same thing can be said for the z-axis at 29.9 millimeters. However, as far as the width of the actual object, it does look like we shrunk about 0.2 millimeters. So during the annealing process, there was at least a little bit of shrinkage going on, as well as the part started to warp just a little bit. It looks like it started to curl up. And so I will show you what I mean here. Okay, so here's the lineup that we're going to be testing and heating up. You can see after the annealing, which is the middle piece of HT-PLA, that it does appear to be just a little bit shorter as well. So definitely shrunk, but not by a great amount. And if dimensional accuracy is super important to you when you're annealing to avoid any warping or shape changing, there are methods to do that where basically you make sure that it's coated with a fine powder and packed tightly. That way it will hold its shape better. It's not really going to help with strength so much though, which is what this test is about. So let's go ahead and begin these tests.
Okay, so to prepare for the temperature testing, I have this set to warm, and I've had it preheating for about 20 minutes. And I just put in a carbon fiber piece, a carbon fiber nylon piece. And I'm going to let this sit in there for about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to check the temperature. That way I have a good gauge of the exact temperature that's going to be after about 10 minutes. All right, it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and get a temperature reading of the piece that's in there, so we know about what we're going to be heating it to. Okay, so it looks like this piece reached about 92 degrees Celsius, 87. So between 90, it's cooling down pretty quick now, but the highest reading we got was 93.3. So actually I'm going to turn up the heat just a bit. And let's see if we can get that to about 100 degrees Celsius. We'll let that sit for about 5 more minutes and come back and we'll check out the temperature. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, so now we're going to check the temperature of the piece. And let's see, it looks like we're still in the 80s and 90s actually. It looks like the ambient temperature, well, it's hard because it's on flow to actually get a good reading. It's about 90 degrees Celsius. So definitely hotter than it should be getting in your car. What I'm going to do is I am going to put all the pieces in it and let this go for about the next 10 minutes and you will see how everything is. But I am going to leave the recording on this time so we can get hopefully a time lapse of what exactly is occurring. So see if I can get this to zoom in tighter. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna, this is the polycarbonate. Here we have the ABS. Here we have the annealed version of the high temperature PLA. Here we have the unannealed high temperature PLA. And here we have standard PLA. Hey Siri, set an alarm for 10 minutes. Alright, then when this is up, we will check out how our pieces look. So hot car for 10 minutes, and then if we haven't seen anything, we will let it sit for a while longer and see if we can get any of these pieces to form. If not, we will slowly increase the temperature and see how long each of them lasts. So it seems like some of the PLA is already starting to stick to the aluminum foil. So is the ABS stuff. I'm just going to move these around, but nope, looks like they're in place. All right.
So if you look, guys, it looks like the gray PLA, the straight PLA, might not be doing so well. Yeah, it's definitely it's dying. The high temp PLA seemed fine. The ABS still looks good, and the polycarbonate is still fine. But the PLA is definitely, I mean, that's why you can't just use normal PLA in your car, and that's what's been one of the drawbacks of using it, because it's so easy to print PLA. Okay, we're going to check out the temps and how everything looks. Series stop. Okay, so we have on the gray PLA, it is got up to a max of 85.4. This piece is reading about 85 tops. No deformation. The annealed piece we have, it's got up to 87 on that piece, and it looks to be holding well. The ABS piece is up to about 86.3, and then the polycarbonate piece got up to about 83.2, so maybe it's not quite as warm there towards the edge. We'll get the polycarbonate towards the middle, but as you can see, the gray piece is just done. So now I'm going to turn up the temperature a bit. I'm going to put this at about 250 Fahrenheit, so well hotter than it would get in your car. Close this up and check it again in about 5 to 10 minutes. No, we're going to give it 10. Okay, Siri, set an alarm for 10 minutes.
5 minutes starting now.
Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and stop it, measure the temperatures real quick, and if I get this wide, okay. Measure the temps on everything. Now I'm going to actually see if it's still secure by pressing down on it with a pick that I have here. Oh, we have the ABS mounting too. Okay, so looks like the PLA made it to about 117. That piece we actually got a 122 reading on, and it did not deform. 120 degrees Celsius. That looks like the annealed one lived. the ABS. Got to about 124, and the polycarbonate got to about 122. Okay, so again, this is just gooey. This appears pretty solid. Same with this. No, that one's definitely gooey. The polycarbonate is good as well. So I'm gonna let this cool down, and I will take this out and we will check out our pieces and see what happened. Okay, so here are our test pieces. We have the first, this is the normal PLA. This was one of the main problems about 3D printing for any kind of use inside of a car or where it'd be really warm before. Is PLA, while it prints really easily on just about any filament printer you can find, heat deflection and temperature stability go. Here is the ABS. This is the one a lot of people use in cars. So we were pushing things higher than you would typically see in a car to get to this point. ABS is generally okay. And also interesting, where the aluminum was right over the heating filaments, it did melt the actual feet. And all of the pieces exhibited a little bit of that. So I assume it was much hotter where this was actually touched, since the aluminum was suspended just a little bit above the heating elements. But again, we had warping, major deformation here after only a few minutes. So now, this is where I'm going to need to use a tool to kind of show what was going on here. Next we have, this was the unannealed piece. So it didn't make it out completely unscathed. If you look here, you'll see we do now have a gap. So this does not sit flat anymore, but very, very minimal. And this was the unannealed PLA piece. So, I mean, that's impressive. It outperformed the ABS without any annealing, and that is huge for car audio people who want to get into 3D printing and fabrication, because this stuff is also inexpensive. This is the one that was annealed, and if we check this one out, during the annealing process, it kind of warped up a little bit. So if we look here, we have almost the opposite of what we had before, but I mean, that just means that, you see it sloped like this on this one, that, so what that means is this one didn't really start to sag at all due to the temperature, because it had that angle going in from the annealing process, and it kept it, didn't start to droop. So I mean, this one I would say largely unscathed after annealing. And something that I was thinking about is the annealing temperature is actually hotter than it gets in most cars. So interestingly enough, in theory, this HT-PLA may be self-annealing in a car in a hot day. I don't know enough about what actually happens, and if you hold it at that temperature too long and don't let it cool down, if it harms it, or if it's just getting to that temperature and holding it for X amount of time. So this did really well. And here is my favorite, of course. This is the PC, and it is still completely flat, no deformation. I mean, this was, except for the feet over the aluminum, this was unscathed. You can actually see the infill through, so that's pretty cool. They were all printed like that. You just can't tell them the rest. So the new HT-PLA outperformed PLA by a huge margin. But this is the one I was not expecting. I was not expecting it to do better than, this is Polymaker's ABS, so same company, their pink ABS.
impressive, like to outperform one of the de facto go-tos for use. Now, I don't think that PLA has the same like UV resistance, so I mean that's something to still keep in mind. But as far as how it does against temperature, it's not even close. And this is PLA, like I said, I just used the default printing speeds or the default settings and threw it at it, and it went. First time, no issues, great bed adhesion, solid print. This is game changing. Next is the annealed one. That one performed a little bit better even than the unannealed, and then polycarbonate. So there are new options, guys. This is, I need to do more testing, so I'm not going to say anything for sure, like you should go do this and guarantee that it'll work, but from what it looks like here, again, additional testing is needed, but I think people will be able to start printing anything they need for their car, even on the inside, on something as simple as like an Ender 3. I'll be doing more tests over the coming days, so I will try to get those videos posted and shared. Let me know if you have any questions, but initial reactions, HT-PLA, this changes everything.